Hey everyone, welcome. So excited that you're tuning in today, a part of our LeaderCast. I'm Don Champion, and I'm here with the famous Kirk Graham, our Minneapolis campus. So, Kirk, why don't we want to just have a conversation today around multi-site and launching a new campus. It's one of the things that we have experience doing at River Valley, now at 8 campuses here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. State of Minnesota. So we have walked that road a number of different ways. Kirk and I both have campus pastored and launched campuses. And I want to just kind of take a couple minutes at the top and talk about those launches. Kirk, would you just kind of introduce yourself, tell us about yourself a little bit, and tell us about Minneapolis?
Yeah. First of all, just want to say thanks to you, Don and Eric, for allowing me to hang out for a little while. And Eric said, honored to have us on, but for me, I'm honored to be able to spend time with you guys, and I'm excited mostly for the Q&A to be able to help answer any questions. But like you said, my name is Kirk Graham. I'm married, been married for a little over 5 years. I have a 3-year-old daughter. Her name's Adley. She's the coolest. And we've been on staff for coming up on 7 years now at River Valley. And I started as a worship leader, and then from there led at multiple different campuses throughout the years. And then from there I led our communications department for about a year, as well as launching our young adult ministry, which is called 20 Plus. And so I led that for about 3 years. And then a year and a half ago, launched the Minneapolis campus, September 2015. And that was that is our 8th campus that we have right now. And it's our only urban campus, so we're right downtown Minneapolis. And like I said, it started about a year and a half ago. About 2 years ago, Pastor Rob, the end of 2014, Pastor Rob asked me to pray about being the campus pastor for Minneapolis and getting that off the ground. And so really it was January 2015 that we kind of got the ball rolling and started finding out what it meant to launch a campus, and that's what today's all about. So, like I said, we're a year and a half in. We've seen over 1,100 people give their lives to Christ at our campus, and hundreds baptized, and strong community, and just really thankful to be a part of River Valley Church and to be able to lead in a city that I really love and passionate about. So that's a little bit about me.
That's cool. If you don't know about me, I came to River Valley in 2012. I started in June of 2012. 3 months later, I helped start a campus that we envisioned here in Burnsville, which is actually right across the street from our central offices where we're located today in Burnsville. And I came to start a campus to alleviate space off of our Apple Valley campus. And so it was a weekend-only campus venue. And if you hear I'm talking in the past tense, is because we did it for less than a year before we decided to kind of – they call me the closer. But we did it for a year because it really didn't alleviate the space that we were hoping it would at our Apple Valley campus, and then we went into an expansion and everything there. So really, that was our intention. So we started that campus with 3 months type of working timeline. And I think that's a great place for us to talk about first is just a launch timeline, and we can dive in to that, and we can kind of go a number of different directions today in our discussion. And today we're only going to get through a few parts of this. We're actually going to probably do a part 2 in the coming months for this LeaderCast, because there's just so much discussed when it comes to launching a campus. But let's talk the schedule first, Kirk. And I'd love for you to just kind of jump in here, because I worked with a very concise timeline of 3 months. A lot of what we're going to talk about in our timeline, both of us have done. We've done it at different timelines and at different pace, if you will. And we've kind of gone back and said, we feel like this is the best pace to do this. It's not a 3-month pace. It's more like a 12-month pace.
Yours was 3 months?
I did 3 months. I launched the campus in 3 months, which I look back now.
I picked your family up from the airport.
And I think it's crazy.
And I said, don't do it. Don't do it. Get out of here.
and totally, you totally did. And so we did it in 3 months, got it off the ground. But we're going to just share, and Eric, if you can drop a link, we're going to share really the kind of optimal schedule for you here so that you guys can see this Google Doc that we put together. You can download this and use it. But this is a timeline of things that we think are important to work on. And this will kind of even guide our discussion today. So let's talk about the launch schedule timeline here. And let's talk about what we need to be thinking about and doing 12 months out. Why don't you just kind of hit a couple things that are in your mind, Kirk, that you think we should just be thinking about it 12 months out?
Yeah, as we were preparing for this leader cast, I just kind of was trying to frame up, what if we were to launch a campus September 2018? And so a year out from that would be this coming September. And in my mind, after launching Minneapolis, there's a few things that I would tweak. At the same time, there's a lot of things I think we did, and that I was kind of led to do that we would do again. And so just kind of framing up what it would look like if we launched a campus in September 2018, which we might do. I think one of the first things is getting community going, life groups. So if I was to do it, okay, I'll just say it. If I was to do it, I'm just going to go and
do it.
So September to the end of the year, I would try to get life groups going, even without an announcement to the whole church. Hey, we're going to this city. We're going to launch a campus here, 2018. Even without. It would just be initial getting community going. So if you can get a couple groups going, I would try to get 4 to 6 groups in different locations throughout the city, meeting in coffee shops or in people's homes, and just seeing what traction can be built community-wise. When we started Minneapolis, we had been doing our young adult quarterly gatherings in downtown Minneapolis. And because of that, there was a lot of momentum building and a lot of life groups that were happening downtown Minneapolis. So there was that was one of the reasons that kind of sparked in Pastor Rob's mind, saying we need to do something in Minneapolis because we've got a lot of groups that are meeting down there. Our young adults are doing their quarterly events down there. There's just momentum, so it makes a lot of sense. So the first thing I would do September through the end of the year is trying to get some traction with life groups or small groups, whatever your church calls them.
Can we talk about that for a minute? How many people at the onset of Minneapolis were a part of small groups downtown or in the city that you were going to be planting?
At least 100.
Okay.
So there's at least 100 people.
So you had kind of that traction already going, and that really kind of helped seed the way. So cool.
Yeah, it's huge. It still is huge for the health of our campus community. So the next thing leading into January, again, we're working towards a September 2018 launch. January, I think it'd be appropriate to announce to the church. All of this would be based on what Pastor Rob would say, anyways, the lead pastor. But we've identified the city. We've started some life groups. We've even identified the campus pastor who's going to lead this thing, and then announced to the church, hey, in 2018, we're going to launch a campus in this city. This is the campus pastor, and it's going to be incredible. From there, as a campus pastor, and this is what I did in Minneapolis, is just looking for venues. That can be one of the most challenging things, trying to find a venue, especially if you're in a city. We got to find a place that is the right size, the right environment, the right vibe for what fuels River Valley. And so one of the things that our executive pastor, Pastor Darren, said to me early on is you need to know every venue in downtown Minneapolis. You need to know it like the back of your hand. How many does it seat? How much does it cost? What's available? How many weeks can we get it for? You need to know the managers, everything. So I just started doing homework while I was still leading worship at our Eagan campus. I was spending part of my weeks just downtown Minneapolis trying to find venues. And so I toured pretty much every theater, nightclub, bar, event center in Minneapolis, and still have great relationships with a lot of those managers there. And we landed on a place for Minneapolis called the Poorhouse, which was basically a nightclub bar. And we were able to sign a year contract there. So I would try to find the venue January, February, because a lot of them book out far in advance.
Let's pause and talk a little more about venue and determining fit. You were portable, you were in a bar. I was portable. I was in a school. There's a lot of things about the venue that I was in that, looking back in hindsight's 2020, we said, man, that was a bummer. That just didn't work. these aspects of it were difficult. For us, it was like we had a small lobby.
Yeah.
We didn't have like an optimal parking situation. So let's talk about like some of those things that determine the fit for us, and maybe that they can help other people as they're really kind of thinking through a possible location. But those are a couple for us that, like, lobby space was kind of important. For you downtown, parking is something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think before getting into the venue, where is the venue in the city? Is it visible in the city? Is it easy access? Being urban, so this was for the Minneapolis context. Is we wanted to be in the heart of the city. Where are people used to going? There's parts of Minneapolis where we could have been in a neighborhood. But we wanted to be downtown, and we want to be in the heart of the city. And so the Poorhouse is on, if you're familiar with Minneapolis, maybe not, but Hennepin and Fifth. It's right down by the Target Center where the Timberwolves play and where there's a ton of theaters, nightclubs, all that. And so there's easy access to get to this place. And so I would say also no venue is ever perfect.
No.
But
unless it's your church you built, but because they've built it for some other reason and some other purpose here. So if you're going portable, you're always going to have challenges. You're never going to have the perfect space. But you try to look for the things that fit what you're doing and your needs specifically. High traffic is always important for us. I was in a suburban context here, and we were off a main route here. We're a visible high school, great street access. Those are things that are important. I think then, like, functionally, you just have to have the space that are going to meet your needs in terms of kids. In Kirk, you had less kids than we had at Burnsville, but you got to make sure you have enough space, classroom space for those meetings, and then just your worship space. What is the worship experience going to be like? The main room, the audio, those things to think about there. So ease of access and visibility, I would say, a couple kind of overarching or bigger picture things that we look at as well in terms of a location for a campus. And then let's talk about like just our philosophy on and having room to grow when we're thinking about a venue as well.
Yeah, for me, the size of the venue, the auditorium where we're gonna hold service. Obviously, let's get creative with kids. Let's make sure the kids are taken care of. Let's think outside the box. It doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect but let's work with it. But the size of the venue is huge. Mm-hmm. I don't want to start a campus and the place seats 900 people, and then I got to figure out how to make this place not feel like crickets on Sunday. So for us, we found a venue that seated like 225, and that was like we can get it to 275, 300. We can slam pack it a little bit beyond 300, but 225 is great. I really wanted to start with 2 services, and so if I was to launch another campus, I would always try to do 2 services. I think a lot happens with your serving teams to be able to serve a service and then sit in a service, and you're not burning people out. People aren't going months without being in a service, things like that. So I would always want to start with 2, and so for us, starting Minneapolis, 225 is the size, and just a full room. And we do chair manipulation. If we're in the summer, like we're taking out chairs, we're making the gaps of rows wider, things like that, to make sure that the room feels like there's people here. And so we put
that chair manipulation. So that's how we roll.
Yeah, because people, and it's about new people walking in.
Yeah, they have the feel.
When you walk into a space and it feels full, you feel like, man, there's something going on here. Mm-hmm. There's look at all these people here. This must be, there's something happening here, and that's the feeling that you want when you walk into an empty room. It can be more intimidating, but 2, they just feel they can just walk in and they feel like they're in the right place. That's what you want them to feel. I'm in the right place, versus walking into a empty room can feel like, is this?
Yeah, we can't say enough about just being sensitive to the amount of people that you're going to launch with and how big your venue is. You want it to be right size. That's always kind of a phrase we come back to in the multi-site conversation, but you want it to have the right feel, and not, you could have a couple hundred people, but if your venue is too big, it just feels like it just feels like a loss, or, you know, it just doesn't feel great. You want to set it up to be a win. So let's kind of keep the conversation going. 9 months out, one of the things that we do and have done is we're always starting to meet with key leaders. Even when I did this on a much shorter timeline, I found 30 people that were key leaders, deacons, leaders in the church that I could meet with and start to enlist as part of the team, and start to talk to them about the vision of this campus and what we were going to do and how we were going to do it, and ask them to consider being a part of it as well. So, you know, one of those things as a campus pastor or as a staff, you can start to really kind of build that energy even before doing launch meetings or anything like that, but just doing one-on-one meetings and casting the vision for what's going to happen in your city and through your campus. And then one of the things, let me mention this, is you have to identify, start to really kind of hone in and identify who is going to be a part of the campus team. Who's going to be the staff that you need. If you've never seen some of our other multi-site leader casts, I encourage you to go back to multi-site 101, 201, and 301. You can hear about our staffing structure. So we have a planned out staffing structure based on a campus size. So that really alleviates some of our staffing approach. We know exactly where we're headed when we launch a campus to when it grows past 500, 1,000, 2,000, and so on.
And not just size, but the financial aspect too of the campus. That was it's made clear that even if you're growing, you're jumping up into the next tier. Are you financially able to do that as a campus? And so that, yeah, there's both pieces that play into it. And you don't get to max out your staff tier structure just because you broke it. Like if you went into tier 2, which I think is 600, okay, now I'm tier 2 and I can have 9 staff. You don't get to max that out right away. So starting off, we started with a couple part-time. Youth was part-time / associate. So it kind of plays a dual role, youth / associate. And then kids was part-time. And then everybody else, the connections person was volunteer, and then worship was part-time. So a couple volunteer staff, and then everybody else was part-time. And then me as a campus pastor was full-time. So yeah, that was our staff structure.
And for us, we had me full-time as a campus pastor. We had part-time kids, kind of part-time, I guess like admin for the campus / connections, which would be like groups and teams. And then we actually had a part-time production person as well, and full-time worship. So
yeah, so identifying who those people are. Pastor Rob, so when he asked me to be the campus pastor, he mentioned a couple names of, hey, here's some people that are within our church that I think would be really great to have on your team, meet with them, and just see if they would be a good fit, all that. But he really gave me the freedom to be able to build my team. It wasn't like, hey, here's 5 people that are going to be on your team. You have to work with them. It doesn't matter. Just figure it out. So there's a lot of freedom there as a campus pastor to build a team that really fits around my strengths and weaknesses. And to be honest, like the people that Pastor Rob suggested, they are still on our team and amazing. So at the Minneapolis campus. And so once we identify the staff, then it's building kind of core team within the campus, doing interest meetings. And so
let's talk about interest meetings right there. So like let's talk about when we start them, how we do them, and kind of the pace of one of those meetings. Share a little bit of your experience with Minneapolis.
Yeah, so we did 3 before launching Minneapolis, and we did launch Minneapolis in September 15, like I said, and we did June, July, August interest meetings. So we did 3 in a row, inviting the entire church. Anybody that's interested, we encourage everybody. If you live in Minneapolis and you're driving outside of Minneapolis to one of our campuses, go to the interest meeting, because we want you to be going to church, unless God says otherwise. We want you to be going to church in the city that you live in, because that's where you're potentially working. That's where your friends are. That's where your community is. And that's why we're multi-site, right? And so just inviting the whole church to those interest meetings. I would do it a little bit different now. If we were launching September 2018, then I would do March, April, May interest meetings. I'll do them a little bit sooner to kind of start to fill out our life teams, our serving teams, identifying who's going to lead those teams and building structure. So there's a little bit more time there. And the way those meetings turn out, the goal is, getting as many people there as possible, casting as much vision about what the campus is about, and hopefully the campus is about reaching people in that city for Jesus, and starting to get information from the people. So names, emails, numbers, and where they want to serve, what they want to be a part of. And then if they're not already in a so in our context, Minneapolis Life Group, let's get them in a Minneapolis Life Group and in community. So that'll be one thing that I would tweak. I would do March, April, May, so that it gives us some time to do monthly worship nights or services June, July, August before September launch.
Yeah, and so by doing this, you're just building the infrastructure of your church before you ever launch a service. It comes out so much stronger when you hit launch day. You start building those interest meetings, and then you're enlisting people. I think one of the values of launching a new campus or even a service, you could probably take a lot of principles from this talk today and implement, is that it helps you enlist people. It's a moment in time when people are willing to like take up and serve, and you can almost activate the army and before the audience kind of comes, and that's one of those things that interest meetings help build, that community in small groups. And it also helps build really kind of that your serving teams. We call them life teams here at River Valley. And so we begin those several months out. And then we also, one of the other things we'll start doing is worship nights. And so our worship is such a important part of our culture, of our church, and
hopefully every church.
So we do worship nights, and it's a moment where it's aside from our normal weekend service, where we're doing just a extended time of worship. Kirk, talk a little bit about Minneapolis launch with those.
Yeah, so we didn't do 3 of them. I would do 3 months in a row of a monthly. Like I said, I would adjust that. But we did one in August, and then one in August, right, the month before we launched. And that was a time for Pastor Rob to come and speak as lead pastor of the church, as well as kind of another introduction of myself and my wife as campus leadership, and then the campus team. But we spent the night in worship. Pastor Rob did a little teaching and inspiration vision of why we're in Minneapolis. One cool thing that kind of stuck out, and I love this about our pastor, is and I didn't even know he was going to do it. It was kind of on the fly. Maybe he knew and he just didn't tell me, but we received an offering at that worship night the month before we launched for another church that we're connected with in Minneapolis. And so I think that speaks volumes just to the people that are thinking about attending this campus. We realize that we're not the only church in this city. We are joining other great Bible-believing churches that are trying to reach the city. And so there's an urban church that we're connected with that we send some of our local service projects to support. And we received an offering for them that night and gave it. And so it was a really cool moment of, before the campus even launches, we're going to be a part of being generous to other organizations, other churches in the city. We also in August did a local service project. So we partnered with one of the downtown city council events, and we had 40 people come and volunteer. And so those are 2 things that we did, where we're giving, being generous, not just for our launch, but for other churches in the city, being kind of outward about that, as well as doing a local service project in the city. We're serving the city before we're in the city doing services.
Yeah, I think that starts to build your community awareness as well. So you're serving your community, you're investing back in your community before you even launch. But at the same time, you're building awareness for the fact that you're a church that's coming to that city, to that community, and you're helping build awareness. And so that for us was such a strategic thing. We were out in the community at like community events. We helped host like an annual parade and community festival that happens here. So we were just volunteering for that. we would show up at a local bus stop for some of our commuters from our city, and it was cold, so we just were out saying, hey, here's hot chocolate for your ride or coffee for your ride. We had both of them there for people. So we just did things like that, or we went out and served just in some neighborhoods and helping people with their homes or the city parks and things like that. So local kind of outreach is a key part of the launch, where you start to really get people out in the community. You start getting them ready for the launch of the campus, and you're starting to build awareness. And something we'll talk about in our next one will be more in the lines of marketing and social media related to a campus launch, because we feel like we can spend a lot more time talking about that. But that's kind of important. And then the really kind of last thing we want to hit in our kind of timeline or frame here, our time frame is start preview services before you actually do a grand opening. And so this isn't a wildly new idea, but maybe 1 or 2 weeks of having just the home team getting things set and ready and motivated and excited about the launch, and making sure things are running smooth and everyone knows their role and their place, and you kind of are in your venue and you're doing it. If you're portable, it's hugely valuable to have those kind of a couple weeks or a week there where you're getting that before you really broadcast and advertise to the community and your launch date and you start. So
yeah, I think you only need one. I think one preview service the week before, just so your team can feel out the venue and make sure the projector works.
Yeah,
things like that. But yeah, if you do too much, then you're just trying to perfect it before it starts. I think it's good to be nervous going into grand opening and just like, here we go.
All right. Gotta happen.
I hope people show up.
Okay, so let's talk about the finances, and then we'll get into some questions and more. But really kind of the way that we operate as a church in a campus launch is that we are going to allocate funds for the upstart and the capital expenses that go along with a campus launch. That it's going to take a large amount of money for maybe equipment and the cost of that, maybe some staffing and some of those things to get going, and we allocate money for that. But then once we launch, then we have the expectation and the clock is on essentially to build and strengthen your campus, both numerically and financially, as you're reaching people. And so we really target kind of within a year to have that campus being financially viable. And for us in a multi-site context, that means that part of that is not just financially viable in terms of paying the local bills at the campus, but also being a part of supporting the greater vision and staffing of the entire church through what we would call a central allotment or allocation.
Paying your salary.
So thanks, Kirk. Yes, but so every campus has a central allocation. And I'd encourage you to go back to other multi-site talks if you want to hear more about that. But we have that kind of pressure or expectation of really working this to build the strength numerically and financially there.
Yeah, but within a year. So we get launched through Kingdom Builders dollars. And so we don't have to go as campus pastors raise money. That's done by the house, which is amazing. And then within a year, being able to pay your venue, pay your staff salaries, pay all your ministry dollars, pay your central apportionment, and be in the black within a year. And so not every campus has done that. Even some campuses have gone years of just maybe being in the red just a little bit, breaking into the black. And that's the great thing about multi-site is that we support each other. So we feel the pressure as campus pastors, but it's not like they're going to necessarily shut us down if we don't do that. Fortunately, Minneapolis was able to make it, which is great.
Cool.
That's all I have on it.
Cool. Let's talk. Let's take some of your questions now. I think it'd be great to just talk about your questions and spend a little bit of time discussing really multi-site. I see we had a question about campus pastors And so let's talk about that. Someone asked, I'm trying to find
Yeah,
it.
it was Richard Green and Wayne, and they're actually a single site church right now. I would love for Richard and Wayne. I know you guys are thinking through this as you guys are thinking about launching a new campus, going multi-site. Would love for you guys to jump on, ask questions. Wayne, I know you and I were emailing back and forth. Great time for you to jump on, maybe get some of those questions that you have out with these guys. But go ahead, feel free, either of you, if you guys want to lead the way in the Q&A time.
Rich is maybe in a place where looks like Rich was maybe in a place where he's not able to talk right now. But one of the questions was, I'm looking back up here of his questions. Yeah, the role of selecting a campus pastor and developing them for that specific task. Obviously, somebody you know and you trust real well, all those kinds of things. But then a development or onboarding process before that even 1 year launch. How does speak to that, if you would?
Yeah, talking to the pipeline of a campus pastor. One thing, there's a few different things. It's not necessarily specific to the campus pastor role, but things that are built into our programming. And so again, I'm a worship leader, and I was part of some other ministries, but every month at All Staff, we're getting leadership teaching. So developing me as a leader, Pastor Rob, Pastor Darren, some of our other pastors on staff, doing monthly teachings for us, as well as for the first 5 years of being in ministry, Pastor Rob once a month meets with those staff members that are, he calls them first five. So he's talked about that in a previous leader cast, but he spends once a month with all of the staff members that are in their first 5 years of ministry, and he's talking about everything you can think of: how to do a wedding, how to do a funeral, what finances look like, how does church culture, leadership, all this, like he talks about his history in ministry, all of that. And so my development has been just very much not necessarily specific to campus pastor. That's why it was a shock to me that Pastor Rob would take a risk on someone like myself. When he had the conversation with me, I was 25. And to give you context, I'm a college dropout. In high school, I was arrested twice. I wasn't always living for the Lord. And so I'm just grateful to be here, to be honest. And so I was shocked that Pastor Rob would take a risk like that, but it's because I had been kind of in the leadership incubator that he has designed at River Valley. So it wasn't necessarily specific, like I knew I was going to be a campus pastor for 4 years and then this was my moment. It's just everybody that works at River Valley, to be honest, is put into those environments to be developed. And it took shape in different ways, where I was leading young adults, and then I was leading our marketing and design department, and now campus pastor. And so it's been a journey. Now that I am a campus pastor, we sit at a campus pastor table with all the other CPs, and our executive pastor, Pastor Darren, does a teaching once a month. He calls it the Campus Pastor Academy, and does a teaching on how to grow so some of that is like donor relations, and how to build a relationship with top givers, and how to navigate conversations like that. It's like I've never thought about that in my life, but now as a campus pastor, I need to be thinking about that. And so maybe we have the resources of what CP Academy teaches, and that could be a part of your pipeline in the future.
Yeah, and I think one of the key pieces too is campus pastors, as they're launching, get to be probably a month or two before they actually launch, they start integrating into that monthly meeting of other campus pastors, or biweekly meeting of other campus pastors. So then they're really kind of being brought into the fold as they launch to continue to kind of grow, develop, hear from leadership, work with other peers in the room on just kind of that level of leadership. And so I think if you don't have kind of that leadership environment in your church, then you have to be a little more intentional than River Valley has to be. But we've built into our culture so many different niche environments of leadership development, if you will, that it almost kind of just as a natural process as you ebb and flow through years of ministry on the team here.
The last thing I would say too is I think Pastor Rob, he would look at a campus pastor and say, are your hands clean and is your heart clean? If your hands are clean and your heart is clean and you have been at River Valley and you're able to, Pastor Rob's picking somebody that can exemplify the River Valley culture, multiply the River Valley DNA. And then it's a risk. I mean, they couldn't have been like looking at me thinking it's a for sure thing. There's no way. So praise God for steps of faith like that. And I'm really grateful. Yeah, I'm really grateful for it.
That help?
Awesome.
Who's got another question?
And I would just put in a plug for the 101, 201, 301. Excellent resources.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
I
Anybody
know-
else?
I know Richard, if he can't really speak to this right now with the area that he's in, I know he was asking a little bit about the video venue of a multi-site church. Are all our campuses video venue, or is there kind of a mix? If you guys want to speak to that a little bit, how we kind of execute on a Sunday with that video.
Yeah, we are a video venue church, so all of our campuses are primarily going to experience a video teaching message. That doesn't mean that the campus pastor has zero opportunities. It actually means that the campus pastor will have probably 6 opportunities in a year to communicate, preach live from stage to his campus. But really, we look at the video venue and we say, you know what, there's other opportunities in a service to really pastor the church and bring spiritual leadership in moments at the church. And so we let the campus pastor have the opportunity to really kind of close out worship moments, give challenges around offering time, wrap up the sermon. So really it's only the core of the teaching block that is streamed in video wise. The rest is really kind of executed live. And Kirk, you could probably share even your insight or perspective on that. That might add something to that.
Yeah, it's just as a lead pastor being ready to double down on the model that you choose, because we, to be honest, Pastor Rob, Pastor Darren, and myself duked it out for 2.5 hours talking about, if I'm going to do this, here's some thoughts about how I think Minneapolis could be most effectively reached. Part of that had to do with, is video venue the right choice in an urban environment, and then a bunch of other things of like ideas that I had that maybe other campuses weren't doing, and by the end of the conversation, basically Pastor Rob and Pastor Darren very confident, just saying, we are a video venue multi-site church, and some of these thoughts are good thoughts, but it's hard to put data behind those thoughts. And Pastor Rob made this commitment, which I love. He just said, if our model doesn't work downtown, what I care about more than our model is reaching people in Minneapolis. And so if the model doesn't work, then we can come back to the table and we can talk, but we're going to start with video venue model. And I'm bummed to say, but it's working. I'm not bummed. I knew what I was signing up for. So really, I felt the Lord just say, accept the position with the model that it is, and with no stipulations, just say yes. And I was gearing up, honestly, to spend the next 3 years kind of submitting every day, like, okay, just put my head back down, run the play. But what I've found is that I thought it was going to be pretty rigid and tight, and here's the playbook, do this. I've found that there's been so much freedom as a campus pastor for me to lead. And really that's props to Pastor Darren. He's given me so much freedom to be myself. I have a little bit of visionary in me, and I just like running. So he would say his greatest challenge with me is giving me the freedom that I need to lead how I lead, but also keeping me close and making sure I'm not like going rogue. I don't think they would think I would go rogue, but
Just keep an alignment.
Yeah,
with
just
the
staying
ministry of
connected.
the church.
Yeah, just staying connected. So,
Yeah.
but it's been way more freeing than I ever thought. And as far as the video venue live preaching conversation goes, what I've just chosen to do is create as many platforms as possible outside of the 30-minute message, and not just for myself to communicate, but to develop other communicators within our campus and other leaders. So we do a team rally before service, and we do within that rally is we have somebody that leads that meeting, welcomes everybody. It's super celebratory, and then we have one of our life team coaches come up and share a win of what God's done in their team, and then we have another leader come up and do a 3-minute read a scripture, challenge us, remind us why we're here serving people and who's about to walk in the room, and we do that every single week. And so that's one meeting, 10-minute meeting that we added to Sunday mornings and then before our Sunday night service, and that's 6. If you count 3 opportunities, that's 6 platform moments for people to grow in their communication. And so just as a campus pastor, I don't necessarily view it as like, oh man, I can't preach, so now I can't use my gifts. Let's just find other ways to build platforms and develop more voices and more people to be able to communicate. And it doesn't matter if it's 30 minutes. If anything, it's harder for me to talk in 3 minutes than to talk in 30 minutes. I can do 30 minutes on the fly. Let's do this. It might not be great, but it's really difficult for me to do 3 minutes really well.
Yeah. I think that's great. I think one of the things that in terms of selecting, I see Richard asked this question too, and I think it's a good conversation point. In selecting a campus pastor, it kind of fits with what your model is. You have to find the right giftings for what your model is. So if you're going to go video venue or you're going to do live preaching, well, you got to find someone with the right gift sets for those 2 things. And they might be very similar, but there's just some divergent kind of characteristics or qualities. We're looking for gathering type of individuals that can rally people, that can pull people together, that can lead people, that can lead teams. And really that kind of fits the profile at River Valley of a campus pastor. And Kirk fits that perfectly because he's bringing the energy and he's bringing really a strong leadership to the campus through his team, through his personal leadership, and gathering people. People want to follow. They want to be around him, and so that's kind of that quality that we're looking for in selecting a campus pastor, that they have the ability to kind of carry the platform that they're going to be entrusted with.
And also too, we didn't really highlight this, but calling to the city that you're going to. So just, you got to be passionate about the city that you're going to pastor in. I mean, it would make no sense for me. That's like, man, I love St. Paul. St. Paul is my city. I'm living there. That's my jam. And then for me to be asked to go do Minneapolis, and it's like, I like Minneapolis. It's all right. Well, that makes no sense. If anybody's pastoring in a city that you don't really care about or you don't even like, that's super challenging. And you can say you're passionate about people, but if you don't want to spend time in any of the coffee shops or go to any of the restaurants or meet any of the people outside of Sundays, good luck reaching people. You have to be passionate about the city. Right. And that's one thing too, is in selecting the campus pastor, if they're thinking, well, do I have to move to the city? Do I have to move to the city? If they're asking that question, you're probably the wrong guy. I already live there, or I want to, or at least close, and close would be like 15 minutes max. So
cool.
That's great stuff, guys. Great stuff. And we want to leave it open for more questions. We still have a few minutes with these guys. If you guys have questions, please jump on, ask those, drop them in the chat. But if you guys don't have any questions, we'd love to hear where you're at, what you've done. Maybe you launched the campus, maybe you're in the process of launching a campus, stuff you guys are processing through. We'd love to hear and keep it like a collaborative, hear from you guys. Because again, we don't have this all figured out. This is just stuff that we've worked through, we've learned. I think, Tyler, you have a question? Jump on and go ahead and ask that.
Take your time.
I think his audio is not working.
Is his audio not working?
In the
He's-
bottom left, Tyler, you have to click the arrow up and select the headphones, I think. If you drop it in the chat, Tyler, I can ask it for you.
Maybe he can just chat it.
He's gonna put it in the chat. While Tyler's doing that, do we have any more questions?
There we go.
There it is.
So once it's launched, what are 3 main things a brand new campus needs to do and focus on in order to thrive?
Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, I've got 3 things loaded up ready. The 3 things. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know. We're just making it up as we go. But you're filling out your team. So, I mean, it'd be way awkward if you get to offering and nobody's there to pass the bucket. So you got to fill teams, and it'd be way awkward too if people show up and there's nobody opening the door or greeting or anything like that. So, one thing is that once the campus is launched, making sure that your teams are strong and that you're not going to burn people out. Because we had to fill holes fast and identify leaders quick. About a year in, we had a lot of turnover on kind of our leadership role for our life teams because they were really given everything that they had, and we didn't do a good enough job in making sure that all of our teams were in a healthy spot. So we had people serving too much, giving too much, and we weren't doing enough recruiting, bringing in new people onto teams. And so that's a major one. Just get off the ground, great. And there's nothing wrong with people hustling, but fill out the teams to a more healthy size so that people can serve for the long term. We're not going into Minneapolis to do church for 6 months and then leave. We're doing this. We're not going to stop doing this. So what's the healthy pace for all of our people serving? So looking at teams and then also groups. How do we get? You're going to have so many new people coming, and how do we get them into groups? How do we get them into community? And so life groups and life teams, those are the 2. That's how we're building church. Can you serve on a team, and can you get in a group? Because again, you have so many people coming. And then the other thing too is building out a framework, depending on how many groups you have going, making sure that your life group leaders are being poured into and led. And so if you have enough groups, the way that we built out our structure now, we'll have this fall, we'll have over 50 life groups at the Minneapolis campus. And we have currently 2, we just call it, I don't know, this probably isn't River Valley lingo, we'll see. But we have 2 lead life group coaches, and they're couples, 2 couples. And so those 2 couples oversee 5 life group coaches. So the lead coaches are coaching and pouring into the 5 life group coaches. And so that's 10 coaches total for 5 and 5. And each coach is pouring into up to 5 different life group leaders. And so they've got 5 life groups that they oversee. So within that framework, we have the ability to pour into and make sure that there's the 50 life groups, the leaders are being poured into. And the same goes on the life team side of do we have life team coaches that oversee all of Cafe and then break it down into week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And just, really building the framework, get a whiteboard out and start filling holes, making sure that you're able to scale and grow, because you can reach people. But if we went right now from 800 people at Minneapolis to 1,500, we would die at 1,500. It would crash because our structure is not there yet. And so that's what we're doing this summer is how can we build framework so that when we do grow this fall, when we do get to those numbers this fall, then we want to be able to sustain those people.
Yeah, I mean, I would just, with that, add the community piece is so important. Having people in community where they're looking at this new campus as their church. They're not, especially if you're launching off of another campus or another, I guess just another campus in the church. You want to make sure that people are identifying this as their primary source of community. So kind of continually building community with people, getting them into small groups, into serving teams, all that, like Kirk was saying, it's just so critical to the continued kind of strength long-term and keeping it thriving and going forward. So
there's a question here that says, what kind of promotion advertising? That could be a whole leader cast of just
which
how
we'll talk about more, but
Yeah.
we can talk about it, kind of briefly today.
Yeah, we did in Minneapolis. We did some bus ads, which was really cool to see. River Valley Church launching in Minneapolis on the back of a lot of buses driving through downtown. We also do like Facebook ads and things like that. We didn't do a mailer initially because of where we were downtown Minneapolis, but after our year was up at that nightclub, we actually switched venues and signed a 2-year contract at an event center in what's called the North Loop neighborhood, where it's still downtown, but it's a bunch of condos where people live. And so we actually did a mailer as we were moving venues just to that neighborhood downtown. And usually you're like, mailers aren't effective, don't waste money on that. For us downtown, it actually a bunch of people came because they got that mailer, mostly because they can ride their elevators downstairs and walk across the street. And they already knew that we were coming because of some of the bus ads and Facebook and all that. So kind of hit them all.
Yeah, because you'd ask me, I'd be like, don't do a mailer. There's way more money to spend. But you didn't actually, if you're depending on advertising, your sole approach to advertising, if you hear what Kirk was talking about, is we don't depend on any one avenue of advertising. It's going to be multiple things. And so even social media is, this day and age, way more effective and cheaper than mailing. But you may still say, hey, we need to mail something just to have exposure in the community. But our experience across multiple campuses is it's hit or miss if there's really good return for a mailer specifically. But we'll do social media and kind of continue to get that promoted that way out there. And like Kirk said, some bus ads. So things specific to the community or the campus that kind of fit it. We've done billboards, stuff like that. So
yeah.
Any other questions before we wrap up?
Oh, we got 4 minutes left. Let's
we got
do this.
4 minutes. 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes left. So
from your experience, what would you tell a first-time multi-site pastor? Keep your hands clean and your heart clean. Yeah. Are you in the Word every day? Because if that's not a non-negotiable, it should be. Things like that. I think just staying close to the vision of the lead pastor, being as honoring as possible, being as humble as possible. There's nothing wrong with confidence, but if it's arrogance, then we're wrong. And so just having godly confidence. And again, I would say this, because I'm not preaching every week, I need to put just as much energy into the smaller leadership moments that I have throughout the week. And so you're starting a campus, you're going to have a small staff and even volunteer staff. But even though at the beginning, we had, I think, 3 staff members part-time, but we still had 9 or 10 people coming to our staff meeting because they were volunteers. And we did staff meeting at night because, again, half of them had jobs that so we couldn't do them during the day. And so we just had a bunch of people over to our house for staff meeting every week. And am I coming into that staff meeting prepared with development and something on my heart and what God is speaking, and or am I just kind of floating through staff meeting? For me as a campus pastor, one of the biggest challenges is learning to prepare for every meeting that I go into that I'm leading. If you're leading the meeting, you should walk in prepared. So that was kind of a pace changer for me of like, as a leader, I need to walk into everything. So hands clean, heart clean, prep for the meetings that you're leading with something to give.
I think like one thing I would just tell a campus pastor, and it probably hits on a few things that Kirk was saying, is that own it like it's yours. Like you have to own the leadership of it, the spiritual climate. You have to set the tone. You have to own the launch of it. Be prepared as much as you can. So don't feel like that, oh, it's just gonna happen, or the team's gonna make it happen. But you have to come in it into it with an ownership mindset. And now I don't mean that in the negative sense of like, this is my thing and I'm leading it. I mean it with a hand open and a reality of like, God has put me in this position and I want to steward it and I want to do it as best as he's called me to and given me the ability to do it, that I want to own it through and through and do my best and give my best so that more people can be reached. And so that's really kind of the one, if I had to summarize it or put it in one thing, I'd just say, listen, own your role and own your campus in making this happen, because it's about life change. It's about reaching more people for the kingdom of God.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I know we have to end here, but I think some people think, man, at River Valley, do they hand you like a 3-ring binder? Here's your campus pastor binder. You're going into the city, go kill it. Just follow this binder, follow it to the T, and you're going to crush. It's just going to happen. It's just going to happen. Like you're just going to reach the city. The whole city's going to know about this. And that's not the case. I literally thought there would be some of that.
I thought that too.
And there was no binder.
There's no binder.
No binder.
And actually the document that we put in front of you and shared at the beginning of this LeaderCast, we created out of our –
Pastor Rob hasn't looked at that document.
He has not looked at that document, but it's our operational function that we downloaded for you to give to you today.
Pastor Rob literally said to me, he said, I want to reach the city of Minneapolis. Are you able to do it? And I said, yep, let's go. And then he just gives high fives. That's all he does. Is just like, good job. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Pastor Darren's more of a like, you spent how much for this? What? That's crazy. So
awesome. Thanks guys for letting us be a part today. Eric, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I was just going to say thanks, guys. We want to respect your time, but thank you, Don and Kirk, for taking time today to join us and continue the conversation on Multi-Site. Love having you guys here. Love hearing what you guys are going through, what you guys are launching into and experiencing in your ministries, your churches. So excited for you. If there's anything that we can do here at River Valley and through the River Valley Network, drop us a line. I dropped the email in the chat box there. It's just network@rivervalley.org. We want to be an encouragement, a resource to you guys. We're in this together. We're on the same team. We just want to be able to be a resource to you guys. So honored to have you guys here. Thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedules, and have a blessed day. We'll see you guys back at future LeaderCast.